guys, welcome back to Alamat, where we translate and narrate Philippine myths, urban legends, and horror stories to share with the world. This week, I have two stories for you guys, both of which are experiences from schools. This first one is called DLSU Hauntings. My freshman year at De La Salle University, Manila was unforgettable. It was memorable not because of the experience of a whole new world where everything was new and everyone was a stranger, but it was due to the strange things that I encountered at the campus. DLSU, or De La Salle University, is said to be plagued by its harsh Second World War background. The Imperial Japanese Army massacred refugees and Lasallian brothers who took cover inside the university's chapel of the Most Holy Blessed Sacrament, which is housed inside St. LaSalle Hall. Brother Gabriel Conon Hall, which contains the offices of the university's student groups, is said to be haunted by a female student who died after becoming stuck in the building's now disused elevator. Other sites where paranormal activity has been observed are Brother Andrew Gonzalez Hall, St. Mutien Marie Hall, and St. Joseph Hall. My name is Romel, or Mel, as my classmates call me, and I would like to share my own eerie experiences in some of those buildings. My first day at college was a mix of delight, anticipation, dread, and surprise. I got up early, ate breakfast, put on my clothes, and prepared to go to the university. My father dropped me off near the campus gate. We were too early for my first class. I hurriedly hopped off our van and felt self-conscious when I noticed some students staring at me. I asked my father earlier to let me drive by myself, but he declined. I'm not sure what his reasons were, but I told him that I am no longer the young boy from senior high. He honked at me and I waved at him as he closed the van's window. It was another awkward moment as I saw some students laughing, although I was not sure if it was because of me. As I looked around my dream institution, I felt a mixture of uncertainty and excitement. I took a deep breath and walked through the jam-packed school grounds. The beautiful edifice with its massive pillars had an inedible impression on me. Because I was unfamiliar with the LaSalle style of things, I was perplexed. Students with hydro flasks streamed up and down the hallways on their way to their classes. They were wearing branded clothes and had Apple devices with them. But from time to time, especially on dark and isolated corners, I would see dark figures. It's like an anomaly that I'm not sure whether my eyes are playing tricks on me or there's something else. I tried to ignore it as much as possible and tried to start my life as a frosh in DLSU. The gentle breeze caressed my hair as I looked at the tall, high-tech buildings. Later, I counted more than 13 of them, but there could be more. The doors are sensor-controlled. They open and closed on their own. I also noticed a lot of cats on campus, even inside the buildings. They are bigger than the ones we usually see at home. I learned later that these cats were trained not to eat food from the students. Honestly, I felt bad when a black cat blocked my way. Yes, I believe in superstition and that it's bad luck to cross paths with a black cat. I attended my first class as an accountancy major. I sat at the back and met my classmates in our English class. Because everyone was chattering, the room was quite noisy. My classmates were exchanging pleasantries and some introduced themselves to me. I was astonished to learn that some of them were children of politicians and business tycoons, but they were really down to earth. We waited for the professor for around 30 minutes and left the room when no one came. Two of my newly found friends were my classmates, Arnel and Varghese. I learned later that Arnel is from one of the elite families in our city. Varghese, on the other hand, is an international student. He's from India and settled in the country to finish his higher education. They asked me to come with them. They asked me to come with them to the pantry to get some snacks. I was surprised to see that tables were full of bags, laptops, and iPhones without anyone looking at them. The students were lined up at the counter and just left their belongings. I think they used their things to reserve their own spots. Since we don't want to waste our time falling in line, we went to the food stalls at the Brother Blumen Hall, and after getting some snacks, we sat on the bench. We met some upperclassmen who asked for our names. I could tell that they were bullies, but Arnel told us that they could just be asking us to join their school orgs. Varghese warned me to be careful when dealing with them. When my classmates were gone, I suddenly felt a light pressure between my eyebrows, which reached my forehead and became a constant pain there. I noticed something different with my vision. I had to wear eyeglasses as my eyes became sensitive to light, and I noticed the colors were brighter. I tried closing my eyes and I saw geometric patterns and shapes. It was so odd that it made me more confused. I also started experiencing vivid dreams at home. Some were nice ones, but there were some scary ones too. In the next week, I saw Arnel with the upperclassmen coming out of the Henry C. Hall building. The intuition that I had that they were bullies was right. Indeed, they were members of a fraternity, and Arnel convinced me to join them. I was afraid of hazing, so I was hesitant, and I knew that the fraternity was not recognized by the school. Arnel demonstrated how much fun it was to be part of them. They let me witness a prank at one of the restrooms of St. Joseph Hall. They bullied the frosh by locking him inside one of the cubicles, but some students arrived. We were forced to open the cubicle, and he was gone. We scanned all the cubicles and didn't find him there. After a while, we saw him in the pantry and told us that he was there all this time. That weird experience wasn't funny at all, as it sent shivers to my spine. Arnel and Varghese were not my classmates in my algebra class, which is my last subject for that day. I was sitting at the back when I noticed a lovely student sitting in front as the professor talked about the syllabus and course expectations. There are a lot of beautiful girls on campus, but this one really caught my eye. I was hoping that we would introduce ourselves one by one, just like what other professors did in the other subjects. But the class was dismissed early. I told myself that I should meet and get to know this woman who captivated my heart. I followed the lovely girl who went to the St. LaSalle Hall and proceeded to the chapel. My heart was palpitating as I was nervous, and I saw that she went near the altar and sat at one of the long chairs, then knelt down. I sat down at the back and waited for her. Then, I heard disembodied footsteps approaching me. I was puzzled because it was like the sound of people marching in cadence. To my surprise, I saw some bloodied soldiers who walked past me and vanished as they approached the altar. I lost my focus and found out that the lovely girl had already left the chapel. When I stood up, I spotted a priest kneeling at the Blessed Sacrament at the altar. Then he stood up and I noticed that he was headless. I removed my eyeglasses and wiped it, and I saw his silhouette moving in my direction. This shocked me and I ran as far away from the chapel as I could. I went home that day, anxious and baffled. I did not share my experiences about the university because I feared that I might be rejected and dismissed as crazy. But the haunting continued as they gave me some headaches and dizziness. There were a lot of students in the Brother Conan Hall for the frosh welcoming. And the lovely girl that I saw in one of my classes caught my attention again. This time though, it was not because she was pretty, but because she looked spooky. She had this long pitch black hair, pale skin, and a blank stare. She walked towards the elevator and disappeared. As much as I could, I tried to avoid the location where I saw her, but I really needed to get to the bookshop and had to walk by that area. There was a noticeable dip in temperature there, which I observed. It was unmistakably cooler. A mild beating on the wall was also audible. I felt the vibration when I touched the wall with my fingers. I was taken aback and had to remove my hand from it. When I tried touching it again, I realized the amplitude was coming from the abandoned elevator. Then, I heard a woman's voice inside, crying. I moved my head close to the elevator when it suddenly opened and a hand pulled me inside. I fell down to a deep, dark pit with my back first. I expected that my bones would be broken, but I did not feel any pain. I sat down, terrified, waiting for the worst. I looked around and got a glimpse of the surroundings. I saw dark figures wailing in anguish, and their cries were so deafening that I needed to cover my ears. At that point, Varghese approached me and told me we were late for our next subject. He noticed that I was looking at the abandoned elevator, covering my ears, and asked me what happened. I later told him about my odd experiences. He mentioned that my third eye might be opened, and that is why I see scary things. I was astonished to hear that from him. I thought that he was just joking, but he mentioned his cousin, Pavani, who was also our Indian schoolmate, knew how to help us close my third eye. That same week, Varghese took me to his cousin's place. Pavani welcomed us in their front yard garden. She has a beautiful set of eyes, dark skin, and a very graceful demeanor. She smiled at me and she requested her nanny to bring us some refreshments. An overactive third eye, according to Pavani, comes with a slew of problems and risks. This can involve seeing, hearing, or feeling the presence of non-physical things that can cause one's view of reality to be thrown off. If this continues, she warned that one may be driven to the point of insanity. This made me determined to close my third eye. She made me realize that everything was interconnected. My headaches, my intuitions, my dreams and hauntings. She taught me some forms of meditation, diet, and grounding methods to help close my third eye. With Bhavani's help, I became active in the social activities of our fraternity and no longer saw any hauntings. But before the pandemic, a student from another university died of hazing, and our fraternity was considered as one of the main suspects. It was the most terrifying experience of all, since I didn't want to make my parents upset. I realized that the most horrible actions are done by people, not by ghosts. The good thing is that we were not involved, and my father now allows me to drive by myself. I am now about to graduate from the College of Business together with the lovely woman that I pursued on my first day of college life. She is soon to be my wife, but to be honest, she sometimes looked like the creepy girl at the elevator. The second story for this week is an experience that a girl had when she was still in high school. The story is called Spirit of the Coin. High school is perhaps the most enjoyable period of our lives. Many people consider their college years to be the finest, but I prefer high school since there was more fun and less stress. It's when we've just shed our child skins and are transitioning into our adult bodies. We mature into young adults. There were a lot of funny experiences in high school. However, mine had the scary side to it. I was called a high school demoniac, and this is my story. Please call me by the name Jennifer to hide my identity. This is the story of how a seemingly harmless game of Spirit of the Coin could have a terrifying impact on one's life. No one could have known that by playing the game or by only being around those playing it could trigger a demonic possession. To protect the identity of my loved ones, I won't mention the name of the school, but this happened in the Philippines. I am sharing this experience to help those who are still being oppressed by evil spirits, and I hope this testimony will prevent others from following in our footsteps. I studied in a public secondary school. It consisted of three four-story structures named after our past town's mayors. These buildings encircle a covered court with a stage where school activities were conducted. The school was built on a site of a former cemetery, which had to be closed and relocated as the area's population grew. When I first learned about this, it gave me a weird vibe. We belonged to the star section. My best friend Danny Lean was with me in the class as well. I am not an exceptional student. I only give enough effort on my studies just to have an above average grade and to retain my spot in the top section. But nonetheless, you could still say that I am one of the best in the school. Daneline, on the other hand, is my exact opposite. She didn't care about her grades, and you could see on her attitude that she does not care if she landed on the top section or not. In fact, this is the first time that she landed in the top section. Even she made it a point to joke that she only made it because someone made a mistake. We became friends right away when Daneline joined our class. She's really fun to be with, and she caused a lot of mischief that entertained everyone. We never thought that one of her mischiefs would scar our young minds for life. One afternoon, we learned that the teacher for our last subject was not around. After a brief moment of celebration, which drew the ire of the teacher in the adjacent classroom, Daneline asked me to accompany her to the library. When we arrived there, she opened one of the computers, fired the browser, and typed, "Spirit of the Coin template." To say that I was intrigued was an understatement. I have watched a lot of Ouija-inspired horror movies, and there were always terrible things that followed after the game. "What are you doing?" I asked Daneline. "This is called the Spirit of the Coin." Daneline took the piece of paper from the library's printer and raised it. "I saw this on YouTube yesterday," she explained. "I know what that is. What I mean is, isn't that demonic?" I tried to persuade Daneline to reconsider. "Oh please, there's no such thing." She looked at me. "You don't look like the religious type anyway." She grabbed my left hand and ushered me closer to the paper. "This is just for fun, don't worry," Daneline assured me. "As long as I'm not part of it, I'll be fine," I said to myself. I nodded hesitantly. It was already dark when we returned to our room. Only a handful of classmates were still around, and Daneline was elated that the class next door was also gone. Daneline did not waste any time playing the game. She was joined by a few other classmates while I looked from the corner near the door of our room. They placed a 5 peso coin in the center circle that is labeled start and placed their fingers on top of the coin. It did not take long for the coin to move. They asked a few yes or no questions, and the coin moved to the answer. The longer they played the game, the heavier I felt. Our room's light flickered a few times, which made a few of the students shriek. But everyone kept playing the game because all suspected that Daneline was actually the one moving the coin. I was not feeling well, so I decided to close my eyes for a bit. When I opened my eyes after a couple of minutes, Daneline and the rest were still playing the game. I held my head because it was throbbing in pain. I was about to ask Daneline what the time was when I noticed a little boy whispering in my best friend's ear from time to time. I did not pay much attention to him because I was thinking that it was some classmate's little brother. "Dan, it's getting late. We should go home," I interrupted their game. I looked at Daneline for a second and moved my gaze to the boy. When the boy saw that I was looking at him, he locked his gaze at me. Wait for a while, we're having fun here, Danieline protested, followed by a few of her classmates, telling me not to spoil the fun. Fine, I whispered to myself. That's when I noticed the boy, already standing in front of me. I didn't notice him move from Danny's side onto my seat, which is a few feet away. Hi there, little boy, I smiled at him. The boy's eyes widened, and he suddenly had this evil grin on his face. The more I looked at him, the more I noticed that his eyes were turning all black. At the same time, I felt fear that I never felt before. In hindsight, it is what you would feel when your life was in danger. Something that you would feel if there's a poisonous snake right in front of you. I was so shocked by the sudden turn of events that I fell off my seat into the floor. I was crying and shaking when I landed. The boy was immediately on my face even after I just landed. His all black eyes locked into mine, his small arms wrapped around my neck and his mouth wide open. He was making this continuous eerie ticking sound. I was hysterical. I kept on pushing him away from my face, but no matter how hard I tried, he was still there. His small and feeble arms slowly suffocated the life out of me. I woke up in the principal's office surrounded by a few remaining faculty teachers that night. Some were holding my arms and feet down. I was so confused and didn't know what was happening. I looked around and saw a few students looking at me from the window. Danieline was also there crying. Right behind her was a woman in a black dress. Her hair was disheveled and she had a black veil on her head. She was holding a red candle that can barely illuminate her face because it was so dark outside. For some reason, there was no light in the entire school. I focused my eyes on the lady in black and she reciprocated. She slowly moved her head from behind Danieline's head, showing one of her fierce red eyes. I could feel hatred and contempt from the way she looked at me. She showed me half her face while the other half was hidden behind Danieline's head. She held Danieline's neck with her left hand, revealing her long black nails. She looked at me intently and licked my best friend's cheeks while keeping her eyes locked on mine. I immediately went hysterical again and blacked out. When I regained my consciousness, a pastor was with my teachers and was reading verses from the Bible. For some reason, I felt severe hatred and contempt for the pastor. He kept on invoking in Jesus' name, which aggravated the hatred I felt for him even more. During that time, I swear, I managed to slip one of my arms from those holding it. I would have ripped his face off. When I looked around, a few other students were also hysterical on the floor, including Danieline. They were also being held down by a few other people. Some of the students were laughing, some were crying, cursing, and spitting on people around them. At that point, I was not sure if it was just vertigo or my head was literally spinning. I looked around and saw that there were people looking in from the windows. There were no more students among them. Most of them were looking at us grinning, their eyes wide in the light of what's happening. Some had their faces bloodied and disfigured, while some looked outright demonic in appearance. I looked back at Danieline on the floor, and standing on her chest was the lady in black. I saw her turn her face to me, and she was smiling. She spat on my face. I don't remember anything else after that. All of the students were eventually delivered from the demonic possession due to the combined effort of the pastor and the priest that arrived later. The school was closed down for a week to give way for a cleansing and blessing ceremony by both the pastor and the priest. I was apprehensive and very much afraid to go back to school when the school opened. But sooner or later, I knew that I had to face my demons. It's just that the saying became literal on my part. Besides, my friends will be there. Daneline will be there. Come Monday, I heard the tragic truth. Daneline hanged herself in her room. Her parents told us that she had been complaining of demons nibbling on her arms and legs whenever she closed her eyes. This led her into a week of long, sleepless nights, and she wasn't even eating. Until the day before we all went back to school, her parents found her hanging by the neck on her room ceiling. No one could ever have thought that an innocent game like the Spirit of the Coin could cause a devastating and lasting scar on us. My advice for anyone that is foolish enough to follow our path, I say, don't do it. It's like playing with fire in a gasoline station. Not only would you burn, but your entire neighborhood would burn as well. Even now, I feel that it's not really over. Recently, I woke up late at night because I felt cold hands were holding my neck. It became so terrifying that I'm so scared to sleep or even to close my eyes. Honestly, I don't know how this haunting will end or if it will end at all. If you got scared and enjoyed this week's stories, don't forget to like and subscribe and to share this channel to your friends and family. If you have stories you would want me to narrate, please send them over at mralamatph@gmail.com. Salamat guys, and see you in the next one.